everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here, WAM, John Sneisen, and the pension storm continues. This is not going to end well, folks, but here's one that actually might get some people happy, but it should still concern you all the same, is that from this Fortune article, some state pension funds may collapse in economic downturn. So, okay, less taxpayer money going to these guys, but this is more indicative of a serious problem that will affect all of those that worked hard their whole life and, gathered these pensions usually by force because, a lot of people don't really know how to save for themselves, and it goes through their business, comes out of their checks, goes into these pension funds, and, a lot of people my age aren't going to be getting it. People John's age aren't going to be getting their pensions, and this is a really important point to make. So, as this article says, state pension funds will run the risk of going dry if the economy slows down, according to a recent study by the Pew Charitable Trusts. The study published this month found that pension funds in New Jersey and Kentucky are most at risk of collapse due to a steady decrease in public pension system funding. Both states saw pension funding levels decrease from more than 100% to just 31% between fiscal years 2000 and 2016. New Jersey and Kentucky possess the two lowest funded state pension systems nationwide. But many more pension funds across the country are at risk, according to the study, which also analyzed the stability of pension systems in Colorado, Connecticut, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, and Wisconsin. And I quote, even after 8 years of economic recovery, that's funny, 8 straight years of stock market gains, also hilarious, the public pension plans are more vulnerable than they've ever been to the next recession, researcher Greg Menace said in an interview with the Associated Press. Greg Menace, indeed. Menace to facts, because obviously he's right about them going down, but to say that anything recovered since 2008 is frankly laughable. The problem is that we have looked in the past at statistics looking at going up to, I believe, the year 2050, and it won't last that long, by the way, folks, but going up to the year 2050, a total of a $400 trillion shortfall in pensions. That's insane. And at that time, around an average age, people born in the year 2007 hitting about the average age of 103 years old. How is that sustainable? How do these people get their pensions funded? And why? Why are we dependent on this structure that is making us dependent to banks and government, etc., to get this savings money long term, which isn't going to happen, massive shortfalls, and forced on the taxpayer to pay off these people's pensions? It's just insane. It doesn't work, and it just pulls people away from being independent, free individuals, and rather instead indebted, dependent people on the banking system and the government. John, can you go into this?
First of all, the U.S. has over $100 trillion in unfunded liabilities. That means money like pensions and so on that they promised other people. Think about that. How much taxes are you going to have to increase in order to pay that? And then, of course, you got to look at something that they really forgot, which I found interesting. Well, probably not, because it might be some leftists that did this report. But how about CalPERS that are on the verge of bankruptcy? They've been bailed out several times. How about Chicago and Illinois? All those state funds are in turmoil. And then how about Puerto Rico? Forget about them. So it's funny how they don't mention the worst ones in this article at all, but it just shows, when you promise to pay people 6 to 8% annually in a return, and then you also tell them that they could retire at ages as low as 55. That is pure insanity. You think that they're gonna be on getting that amount of money, the same amount of money that they actually got when they retired at the top of their career, all their life, for the rest of their lives? That's utter insanity. Unless you actually were a responsible human being, you took that money and invested it yourself, and then you made maybe even more than that, and now you could retire rich and have a good end of your life. Yeah. But the problem is that, of course, the government has used this program. They've been pushing it down the road. They're not willing to even talk about it because they know that this is the biggest scam that they started, back in the time, I forgot when they started, like the 60s, 70s, when they really started these pension funds. It's such a massive scam now that, there's so many people that are going to get paid probably, as low as 25 cents on the dollar when it's all said and done. They might get some, but, it's not going to be very much.
Well, and if people understood at a vast scale these Ponzi pension plans, there would be torches lit. And folks, when it comes to people understanding it, I will say that we have seen almost every person I've talked to, aged about 35 to 60, are starting to get really worried. Just average people, not people that understand economics, not people that understand money or any of this. People that are, average everyday people are worried because they feel that something isn't right. And when that faith is lost, man, it's not going to be good. But look, it comes down to you as an individual saving for yourself. As John mentioned, people need to find proper assets and investments and wealth insurance and pull themselves out of this. Like, if people, instead of most people getting just forced to put money into these pension plans through the banks and being completely dependent on them, if people weren't in that kind of situation, people could actually take it upon themselves to educate themselves, be the change they wish to see, and put money into things that will actually pay off long term.
Yeah, and then not to forget, think about all these banks and the derivatives that they put on all these pension funds books. Of course, in 2008, there was the collateralized debt obligations that they, forced upon through AAA rating all these pension funds. But it's not only that. Like, they forced it on so many other pension funds. Looking in Norway, several state pension funds went bankrupt because of just a little bit of amount of collateralized debt obligations that went sour. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to take much to topple this whole pension disaster, because they've been looking for huge yield. I bet you that a lot of pension funds bought the 100-year Argentinian bonds, which is like it's probably the worst investment over the last decade, 100-year Argentinian bonds. And then, of course, and if you look at the track record of Argentina over the last 100 years, well, they defaulted about 4 or 5 times.
And they've only hyperinflated how many times?
Oh yeah, exactly. Double of that. No, not double, but 5 or 6 times as well. So you just see that, you think that that is a responsible investment. Well, that's what they pushed these pension funds into, because they were looking for yield, because bonds were super low throughout all this time. And now they take in mass amounts of risk, probably, and now you're looking at the next crisis that's coming. It's not looking good for any pension funds.
Yeah, see, everyone's talking about Roseanne Barr and Morgan Freeman and all this kind of stuff. It's like, folks,
nobody's talking about the real
this is so absolutely, this is so important. If you don't understand money, money will control you. Exactly. If you understand money, you control money, and you control your own fate, as long as you are a responsible, free human being. Responsibility, of course, being the hallmark of freedom itself. You as an individual need to save for the future. And of course, this isn't investment advice, this is just opinion, but look towards things like food, water, shelter, self-defense, or not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. And of course, look at wealth insurances like gold, silver, incredibly undervalued in my opinion. And then of course, fundamentally useful cryptocurrencies. There's some out there. You have to do your own due diligence, folks. Don't just listen to me. There's lots of good cryptocurrencies out there, though, that actually have fundamental value. And then a lot of Ponzi schemes and pyramid schemes and massive fraudulent coins out there as well. Be very careful. Again, don't go into 400th place cryptocurrency in the charts and go, well, that sounds like a good idea. All I have to do is put $1,000 in and it'll go up. And no, folks, try and mitigate the risk as much as you can and be able to actually sustain yourselves, understand money, and with that, save for your future, and for God's sake, save for your children's future, because millennials and baby boomers most is so in debt right now. It's unbelievable. Looking at the baby boomers being the biggest spenders into the economy, and then of course millennials dependent on their parents who are baby boomers. It's just a mess.
Well, just one last thing: when all these baby boomers are going to start withdrawing their pensions, you got to also remember that that's going to have to be sold to someone. And who's it going to be sold to? Who's of the millennials today want to buy stocks? No, they won't, because they've seen 2008 what happened there. There's no trust in the stock market. Who's going to buy bonds? Which people are talking about all the time about the danger of default in debt. No, nobody's going to buy that out. So what's going to happen here when they try to offload older assets in order to pay out all these pensioners? It's going to be a complete disaster, and it's a massive apocalypse, and not, together with it's going to be caused by the first of all the debt apocalypse, and then of course that's going to topple the stock markets, and through that, the pension funds.
And it doesn't help that the banks are still completely insolvent and bankrupt, going back from 2008, where their cash to deposit ratio is laughable, some as low as 0.15% of deposits covered in cash. It's insane. You can't even do a bank run. Folks, prepare yourselves. Fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation in the monetary system as well as the market, so you can't put a date on it, so you can't put a date on that crash. But it's going to happen, and for that reason, you as individuals need to get ready for the coming pension bubble. And thanks for going into this with us, John. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change. Like what you see here, WAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized and censored by YouTube as the ADL comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. Also, check our Bitcoin address in the description as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And also find us at steemit.com at Josh Sigurdson, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post in Steem, the cryptocurrency. And also find us at the Red Pill Expo, which we have a reference link for below in the description and the comments as well. Hosted by G. Edward Griffin, amazing speakers coming out to speak this year. Don't miss it. It's in Spokane, Washington, June 21st to 23rd. We hope to see you there. But until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.